Okay, today we're going to be studying chapter 8. It is a rather lengthy chapter in comparison to what we have been covering, but I want to cover all the material in chapter 8. Now, it won't be hard for us to do because it's a very simple thing for us to understand. I won't need to be making too many comments as we go along because it's really self-explanatory in there. Let me say this as far as introduction is concerned. And that is that the first 9 chapters of the book of Proverbs sets the stage for what we commonly think of Proverbs. In other words, Proverbs we think of as a short saying that tells us a lot about life. Now in chapter 10, then that's where that book starts with just every verse going down through talking in that way. The first 9 chapters is setting the stage for us so that we can appreciate those other chapters when we get there. And the stage that he sets is this. He is showing us how important wisdom is. Now, I think that we need to stop and think about it a little bit ourselves. When we think about God through the Holy Spirit, giving us 9 chapters, telling us about how important wisdom is. And it tells us several things over and over and over again. For instance, the first 13 verses today, or the first 11 verses, are going to tell us things that we have already studied before. It's going to tell us where we can get wisdom, how simple it is, how easy it is for us to obtain wisdom, trying to impress upon us that wisdom is a very necessary thing for us to get. So why did God spend 9 chapters really just laying the groundwork, trying to get us to see how important wisdom is? Now it just might be because wisdom is the most important thing you will ever have in this life. As you start out going through life, and you try to achieve any goal, and you say, I want to get a certain job, I want to acquire so much money, I want to retire at a certain age, I want to live in a certain kind of house, whatever it is that you desire, wisdom is far more important than that. And that's what God is telling us. And He's giving us these 9 chapters in order to tell us that and then just drive it home. Just drive it home. Just drive it home about here is how important wisdom really is. Now, after He does all of this, after we've read all of this, I suppose that close to 100% of us will go back forgetting how important wisdom really is. But that's what the book of Proverbs here is laying the groundwork for. So today, we're going to study chapter 8. Next week, we'll study chapter 9. Then, at the first of the year, we will begin in those Proverbs, just one after the other. But let us go back today now and think about wisdom. Now, keep this in mind. God, in this first 9 chapters, does a very unique thing. He takes the various things in your mind. One of them is wisdom, whether you have wisdom or not. He takes wisdom and he kind of pulls it out and he sets it over here at the side and he says, now I want to talk about wisdom. And for us to talk about wisdom, I want to give you something that you can see with your eyes. Rather than just talking about it and thinking about it and meditating upon it, I want to give you a picture so you can see wisdom with your eyes. So he said, I want you to think about wisdom as an individual. And he talks about a lady in one place in here being full of wisdom. Let's suppose that you could take wisdom, all the wisdom in the world, all the wisdom God has, all the wisdom man has, all the wisdom in the world, and you could put all of that wisdom in one human body. And that human body that woman, with all that wisdom in her, could stand here next to me this morning. And so we then would have an opportunity to ask her how we should go about anything in the world. And this lady would be able to answer us with even the wisdom of God. How great would that be? Now, what this book is saying is, here's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about that lady that is full of all the wisdom there is. And you're not going to have the opportunity to stand and when you come to a crisis in your life, you're not going to be able to turn around and ask her, what do you think I should do about this? So here's what you have to do. You have the opportunity to tap in to her wisdom before it ever happens. Before you ever need her, you have the opportunity to tap into her and say, give me this wisdom. I want you to pour my mind full of wisdom. That's what the book of Proverbs says it's trying to do to us. It's trying to get us to see how that is. In today's technology, we can use the word download, can't we? If it were possible, I turn around to Mrs. Wisdom and I say, could you download all your wisdom into my mind? And then I would have all the wisdom there is in heaven and on earth. Now that would really be something. But now that's not possible. So we're going to have to tap into her mind. And how do we get a little bit of wisdom and put it in here? How do we get a little bit more? How do I get just a little bit more? Give me a little bit more wisdom. How do I get just a little bit more wisdom since I can't download it all? That's what these first 11 verses are going to tell us. It's going to tell us, don't be despondent, because you can find wisdom anywhere you go. And the problem is we don't look for it. Now, he's going to show us again, and we've studied these things before, so I'm not going to stop on them to really talk about them a great deal. He said, doth not wisdom cry? In other words, isn't wisdom crying to all of us? Crying out, here, here, come get me. Wisdom is crying to all of us. And understanding put forth her voice. She's trying to get us to listen. So here's where you find her. On the top of high places by the way, as you're going down the road, on top of any mount that there is, thank you, on the top of any mount, any high place, you can find wisdom. Where the paths or the roads meet, wherever there's a crossroads, you can find wisdom. It said she standeth. Beside the gates at the entry of the city, there you can find wisdom. At the coming in at the doors, she crieth aloud, unto you, O men, I call. Where do you look for wisdom? You look for wisdom everywhere. It's an everyday situation. And my voice is to the sons of men, O you simple, understand prudence. And you fools, be of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things. So, for those of us who are simple, meaning, how do you put it? There's a difference between simple and fool. We all know what a fool is, but a simple person is a person that doesn't know what's going on. And they are that way because they haven't paid the price to find out. They don't particularly care. They just kind of dance through life. So now, all you people, you listen, and I'll speak excellent things. Now this is wisdom. And the openings of my lips shall be right things, for my mouth shall utter truth. And wickedness is an abomination to my lips. In other words, when you get wisdom, there's never going to be any wickedness involved in it. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. When you do whatever is wise, it will always be righteous. There is nothing crooked or perverse in them. they are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that findeth knowledge. So as you're working with wisdom, and you say, am I doing a wise thing? Are you doing any unlawful, immoral thing? If you are, it's not wise. Wisdom, Mrs. Wisdom, teaches all wisdom does what is right. Now in verse 10, receive my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared unto it. There again it tells us how important wisdom is. Wisdom is more important than anything you can acquire in this life. If you could get all the jewelry, all of the riches, and you could get the world's riches under your control, still that wouldn't be compared to wisdom. Now that's how important wisdom is. It's so important that it boggles my imagination. And we're going to see why in just a minute. I can't even comprehend how important wisdom is. And in a minute, we're going to see why I'm making this statement. Now it goes ahead and tells us what wisdom does. I, wisdom, have made prudence my dwelling. So I live now in prudence or understanding and doing things the right way, and find out knowledge and discretion. The fear of Jehovah is to hate evil, pride, and arrogancy, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth do I hate. Now, Mrs. Wisdom says, as we start out, here's something I want you to understand. Now, she's already told us that if you get wisdom, there's never any ungodly, immoral thing mixed up in it. Here again, it says the same thing. Now remember, we've already learned that the beginning of knowledge is the fear of Jehovah. And you have to have some knowledge in order to get wisdom. So the first thing that the Proverbs tells us is, if we're going to get wisdom, is learn how to fear Jehovah. Now, if we fear Jehovah, he says, the fear of Jehovah is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and the evil way and the perverse mouth. You know, that's kind of a unique statement. I'll bet you that if you went out and you asked the world, and if you'd ask us before this lesson, you'd ask me yesterday, and you say, what is it to fear Jehovah? What is it to fear Jehovah? How many of us would say, okay, I think I can start out and give you a pretty clear understanding of what it is to fear Jehovah. To fear Jehovah is to hate. You'd say, what? Yep. That's what this says. So now, the beginning of knowledge is the fear of Jehovah. What is the fear of Jehovah? It's to hate. It's to hate what? It is to hate evil, pride and arrogancy, and evil ways. It's to hate those things. It's to hate any evil activity. It's to hate pride. There is, if we live in wisdom, we do not walk in pride or arrogancy. So it's to hate those things. And a perverse mouth, a mouth that doesn't speak the truth, hate it. Now that's the fear of Jehovah. Now I understand that that's not the entirety of the fear of Jehovah. I also know that we are going to have to love Jehovah. And what was it that Jesus said? If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. So there's positive things that we have to do, but that falls in the realm of love. But as we're going to talk about fear, how many of us would say, okay, it is to hate? Now, in verse 14, Wisdom says, counsel is mine and sound knowledge. I am understanding and I have might. So wisdom says, if you have me, you have the ability to give counsel. You have the ability to give the right advice. And you have understanding about things that are going on. And you have might. You have power. Well, what kind of power do you have? When you have wisdom, what kind of power does that give you? He said, well, by me kings reign, and princes decree justice. So he said, I'll tell you the power that wisdom gives you. It gives you the power of a king or a prince. Unless a king or a prince has wisdom, they don't have the ability to make the laws and rule the way they should. So by me, wisdom, kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me, princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. That's how all of the wise men of the world rule, is by wisdom. We might stop and ask ourselves, as we see among rulers in every generation, what dumb things they do. And we all just stand and shake our head and say, how could they do such a thing as that? Well, when we come to this and we say, how could they do that? And maybe 100 of our rulers all got together to do this dumb thing. Were they acting with wisdom? No, they were in there and they didn't act with wisdom. If our rulers act with wisdom, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be all right. Now, he goes ahead and he says in 17 about wisdom. Wisdom says, I love them that love me. So if you love wisdom loves you back. And those that seek me diligently shall find me. So now then we see how we're to do it. We're to seek him diligently. We're to seek him when we go in the door and when we go out, when we drive down the street and when we come to a crossroad. We're to seek wisdom anywhere and everywhere there is in life, and we're to seek him diligently. And if we can seek him diligently, then he says, you'll find me. See? Riches and honor are with me. So if you're really wise, riches and honor will be heaped on you, yea, durable wealth and righteousness. So if you're really a wise individual, you will accumulate these earthly things. And the interesting thing here is, he says, not just wealth, but durable wealth. Wealth that you hold on to. I think all of us kind of stand amazed and we see what happens when somebody inherits riches or when they win the lottery. What do you expect when somebody wins the lottery and they win $250 million? What's the expectation? And because it happens over and over and over again. What will happen to that individual? See, that individual can't handle it, and that individual later on will probably end up worse than they did before. Not only broke, but in great lawsuits and having great trouble, and everybody hates them. Durable riches. That's the key that you're after in here. And there's a great deal of difference between just inheriting wealth and acquiring wealth through your wisdom. It said, my fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. So if you ever get the opportunity to either inherit millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, or somebody to give you a head full of wisdom, don't even think about it, just take wisdom. Because it's worth more than that. Now, he comes back here in verse 20, he says, I walk in the ways of righteousness, that's wisdom, in the midst of the paths of justice, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, that I may fill their treasuries. So if you walk wisely, you will be able to accumulate those things that you desire upon this earth. You'll be able to do those things. So wisdom is so much better than any wealth that we could possibly acquire in any way. Excuse me. That's what these first 9 chapters are about, trying to get us to understand and see how important wisdom really is. Now, remember I said wisdom is so big I can't understand it. I can't even start to comprehend how great wisdom is, what it consists of. I can't even talk about it. Because it's like talking about God. It's like you asking me, you say, Lowell, explain to me how long God has been here. And I say, well, eternity. And you, well, explain that. I can't explain that. Well, explain to me how wise God is. Now, God is all-powerful, we know that, but I just want to talk about how wise is He. Well, okay, we see how powerful He is. And when was it? A couple of weeks ago, a new telescope found, I forget how many trillions more stars that are out there. And so we look upon the trillions and trillions, and remember we used to say thousands and thousands of stars, and then millions and millions, and then billions and billions, and now a billion stars is just a little old thing here, like around the earth, like here in our galaxy. Now we're in the trillions, the trillions, but we're finding that we're into the septrillions now. And you say, how many is that? Nobody knows. It's a 7 with, I forget how many hundreds of zeros on the other side of it. That's how powerful God is to make all that stuff. I can't even talk about it. Now, all of it works together. Everything just works together. And why? Because of God's wisdom. God could understand how this galaxy with a billion stars in it affects this galaxy with another 100 billion stars in it. And He made all the arrangements so everything works just right. Then He comes down and He makes this, and He makes the earth and puts it in the axis that it has to be in for us to exist, and on and on and on. And all that is by God's wisdom. I don't understand it. And then you look the other way down into the telescope and the cells, and I don't understand it. Well, if I can't understand God's wisdom, I can't understand wisdom itself. Let's look and see. In 22, Jehovah possessed me in the beginning of His way. Now here's wisdom talking, telling you how important she is. Jehovah possessed me in the beginning of His way. Before His works of old, I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning. Wisdom says, I have been here as long as God has been here. It says, before the earth was, when there were no depths, that's the oceans, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water, before the mountains were settled, before the hills was, I brought forth. While as yet He had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the beginning of the dust of the world. Before God ever created His great creation, I, wisdom, was here. I was there with God. Wow. Then he goes ahead to say, when He established the heavens, I was there. Wisdom was there with God when He made those heavens. When He made all those billions, trillions, septrillions of stars, when God made all of that, wisdom says, I was there. I was there beside God. I was there and God was using me. Remember, we're setting wisdom aside so we can see what wisdom is. And so wisdom was with God. I was guiding him. That's the reason God could make all of that, is because he was all wise. Then he says, when he set a circle upon the face of the deep, when he made firm the stars above. So when God made this earth, and then he made an ocean that you could put on this earth, and it would stay in place. He did that through wisdom. If you want to try that, of course you can't make anything today as big as an earth, so let's just take an orange. You go take an orange, go into your sink, get your cup of water, and I want you to pour it on that orange and have it to stick to that orange, to 2/3 of that orange, and leave 1/3 of it sticking out. And fix it so that the water doesn't run off, doesn't drip off, doesn't change. Just give that a try for a start. That's what he says here. See, he said, God set the limits on this sphere, on this ball. He made the deeps. And he did that by using wisdom. And when he made firm the skies above, we've talked about that. How that up there, everything is made firm. It's unchangeable. We know what's happening. When the fountains of the deep became strong, when he gave to the sea its bound, there's I talked a minute ago, he drew the boundary about that the waters should not transgress his commandment. How did he do that? What happened? Now, if the scientists are able to figure it out someday and say, well, here it is. It's all based upon gravitational pull. It's all based upon the center of the earth, gravitational pull, and the moon and the sun and these various things. And when you put them all together, yeah, isn't that something? You try that. Eh? You try that. And when you really learn here about what holds that ocean in there, it just boggles your mind on the wisdom of God. So wisdom is saying, I was there. I'm the one that helped him do that. Can you imagine God without wisdom? Imagine God being all-powerful, knowing everything, but doesn't have the wisdom to put it together. Kind of like a person that has $100 billion and doesn't have any wisdom about how to use it. Can you imagine God? And you'd say, no, I can't imagine God. That's what wisdom is trying to tell us. That's what these first 9 chapters are trying to tell us. You can't imagine God without wisdom, because wisdom was there guiding God. God was using his wisdom. And this first 9 chapters is just trying to say, get it. Strive for it. Make it your number one thing in life. Look for it. When you come to the crossroads, when you pull out here today, you go north or south, either way. You're going to come to a crossroads within just a little over 1/10 of a mile. When you get there, there's wisdom there. That's what he's saying. You look, what can you learn? Oh, not much, but there is something. Keep those eyes open. Look, there's something that you can learn. Then he comes back and he says, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was by him as a master workman. Wisdom said, I was there by him. I was with him as a master worksman, as a craftsman. God was using me, wisdom, to make all of these things. God never made a mistake in the trillions and trillions of things that he did because he worked with wisdom. I was daily his delight. God was delighted. God was happy because God was full of wisdom. Rejoicing always before him. Wisdom was always there, rejoicing before God. Rejoicing in his inhabitable earth. When he made the earth and all of these trillions of things, it was a thrilling thing. God was happy. God was rejoicing as God was looking at how he made it with wisdom. And my delight was with the sons of men. And so when God made man with wisdom. And he was happy. Everything was fine. So we can see how important wisdom is. Conclusion. Now therefore, my sons, hearken or listen unto me. Now this is wisdom talking. For blessed are they that keep my ways. Blessed are the people who walk in wisdom. Hear instruction and be wise. Always listen to instruction and be wise. And refuse it not. Don't ever refuse information when it comes to you. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. So here's the picture, and here's how you and I should be. Here we have Mrs. Wisdom. Now, a minute ago I said, suppose she's standing here. Now, her picture that we're drawing here is Mrs. Wisdom goes home. She goes home and she closes the gate of her fence and she closes her doors. Now, what should we do? We should rush and stand at the door. We should always be there, always seeking. How can I get more wisdom? How can I get more wisdom? For whoso findeth me findeth life. That's when we're really going to find a good life upon this earth and shall obtain favor of Jehovah. You know, one might say, why does some people have such favorable things? Why does God bless some people and not another person? I don't have all those answers, but right here's one. It could be because that person walked in wisdom. That person was conducting his life in wisdom, and I wasn't. That's one reason. There may be 10,000 others, I don't know, but that one. And then it says, but he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. That is, when we sin against wisdom, we transgress wisdom, we don't act the way wisdom tells us to act, then we have wronged our own soul. I have hurt myself. I haven't hurt you. But I have hurt myself. All they that hate me love death. So any person that sets wisdom aside, in essence, loves death. That's what you're striving for. Love is always acting in the best interest of whatever you love. You're not acting with wisdom. You are loving death. Total destruction. Okay. That chapter is to show us how truly great wisdom really is. Class dismissed.